I had just gotten home from work about an hour ago. The weather was really bad outside, with the storm getting worse by the minute. It was loud and scary, and I didn't like it. We don't usually get thunderstorms like this around here, so it always makes me a little nervous when it happens. I went upstairs to my room, sat on my bed, and turned on the TV to distract myself. The rain was pouring heavily, and I could hear the wind howling outside. It felt like the storm was shaking the house a little. I was trying to relax, but something didn't feel right. After a little while, I heard a sound from downstairs. It was a small noise, like something had bumped into the floor. I thought it was just the house creaking, like it always does, but I got up anyway to check. I walked down the stairs, my heart racing a little because I still felt uneasy. I checked all the rooms downstairs, but there was nothing there. I filled up my water bottle and went back up to my room. As soon as I sat down, I heard the noise again. This time, I knew exactly what it was. It was the sound of my lamp in the living room falling over. It wasn't the first time the lamp had fallen, because it was very wobbly. I had to be careful not to bump into it, or it would fall. But it had never fallen by itself before. I went downstairs and saw the lamp lying on the floor in the middle of the living room. I picked it up, but something felt off. The storm wasn't strong enough to shake the house that much, so how could the lamp have fallen by itself? I checked the room again, but everything seemed normal. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I decided to go back upstairs and try to relax again. I turned the TV down and listened closely. That's when I noticed something strange. The rain outside sounded louder, but it wasn't coming from the windows. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls. I opened the door and listened more carefully. The noise was coming from downstairs. I walked down the hall to the storage closet near the kitchen. There was a small window in the closet, and I could hear rain slapping against the glass. I opened the door, and I couldn't believe what I saw. The window was wide open, and water was flooding into the room, soaking the boxes below it. I knew I had never opened that window, and I was sure I had closed it last time I checked. My heart started pounding in my chest, and I felt scared. I quickly closed the window, but now I was terrified. I realized I had left my phone upstairs. I couldn't call for help. I thought about running out of the house, but I wasn't sure if it was safe. I slowly walked to the kitchen, grabbed my car keys, and tried to make my way to the front door without making a sound. I was hoping if someone was inside, they wouldn't hear me. As I got halfway to the door, I heard footsteps running on the floor above me. They were coming down the hall, heading toward the stairs. I panicked. My heart was beating so fast I could barely breathe. I ran as fast as I could to the front door, hearing the footsteps get closer. I barely got outside and into my car when I saw the figure at the top of the stairs. I backed out of the driveway and drove away without looking back. I called 911, but when the police arrived, they found nothing. The house was empty, but they figured someone must have broken in, tried to hide upstairs, and was probably waiting for me to fall asleep. I was lucky to get out, but it's still creepy knowing someone was in my house while I was just sitting upstairs, watching TV. Now, even when I'm alone at home, I always feel like someone is nearby, even though I can't see them. It was a regular night at the gas station where I worked. I was doing an overnight shift, which meant I was there from 10 p.m. until 8 a.m. It was a long shift, but it paid extra, so I didn't mind. Outside, the storm was getting worse, and the wind started to pick up. It was already raining hard when I got there, and they said the worst of the storm would come later. The gas station was pretty quiet. Not many people were coming in, probably because of the rain. After sitting inside for an hour, I decided to go outside and bring in the things around the pumps that might blow away. There were a few signs, trash cans, and other items that needed to be moved. While I was running back and forth, I saw a man standing across the street, getting soaked by the rain. He was pacing back and forth, looking like he was waiting for someone. I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just waiting for a ride. A couple of hours later, the storm really picked up. The wind was so strong that it was shaking the walls of the station. The rain hit the windows with loud slaps, and the sound was deafening. I thought the front doors might even break from the wind, so I ran over and secured the locks. Then, something strange happened. I was in the back of the store, away from all the windows, when I heard a sound. It wasn't just the storm. It was someone banging on the front door. I walked over and peeked out, and to my surprise, It was the same man I had seen outside earlier. He was standing at the door, knocking hard. I opened the door, thinking he might need help. He was wet from head to toe and didn't say anything. He didn't even look at me. He just started walking back and forth inside the store, pacing like he had no purpose. It was a little creepy, and I asked him if he was okay or if I should call someone, but he just ignored me and kept pacing. I went to the front desk to call the police, but as I picked up the phone, the man suddenly stopped and looked at me. His eyes were cold and empty, and I noticed his hands were all bloody, especially on the knuckles. It made me feel sick. I didn't want to make him mad, so I put the phone down. He stared at me for what felt like forever before he went back to pacing. I felt trapped, unsure of what to do. I could try to run, but I didn't want him to catch me. I could also call the police, but I didn't want to make him angry. I decided to wait it out. For 20 minutes, I just stood there, trying to calm my nerves. Finally, the man stopped pacing, gave me one last look, and then walked over to the door. He unlocked it, opened it, and walked out into the storm without saying a word. I immediately called the police. When they arrived, they couldn't find the man. They checked, and the storm had washed away any tracks he might have left. The next day, I heard about a woman who went missing that night, and I couldn't help but wonder if the man had something to do with it. He had blood on his hands, and it seemed like he was waiting for something, maybe even for me to fall asleep. I can't stop thinking about it. I was on my way home from a late shift at work. I worked as a security guard, so my hours were never the same. That night, I finished work at 1 a.m. There was a big storm, and the rain was coming down hard. The roads were flooding, and there were barely any cars on the road. I took a smaller side street, which was usually quieter, but it turned out to be a bad idea this time. I came to a flooded spot in the road. It was hard to see how deep the water was, but it looked dangerous, so I decided to turn around. As I reversed, I suddenly heard a loud beeping sound from my car. I wasn't sure why, but when I looked behind me, I saw a car was right on my bumper, just a couple of feet away. This was weird because I hadn't seen any cars behind me the whole time. The headlights were off, and the car wasn't moving. I waited for a moment, hoping the driver would realize I was backing up and move. But they didn't. The car just stayed there. Then, the door of the car opened, and a man in black clothing with a hood walked up to my window. He knocked on it, but he didn't say anything. I felt my heart start to race. I didn't know what to do. I thought about driving forward, but he was walking beside my car, keeping up with me. Before I could decide what to do, I heard another knock on the other side of my car. Another man was standing there, and I could see a third figure approaching. I froze. There was no way I could just drive off now. They were blocking me in. I wasn't sure what to do, but I decided to just get out of there. I tried to turn my car around quickly, not caring if I drove through the flooded area. For a few seconds, my car slid, and I thought I was stuck, but by some miracle, I was able to turn around and drive away. Once I was back on the main road, I called the police. When they came, they found the car still there, but the men were gone. The police traced the car back to a dealership far away, and it had been stolen months ago. I don't know who those men were or what they wanted, but I'll never forget how close I came to something bad happening.